going to start with number 361. 361. A little reminder to you, if you're hot, move to the center.
We can turn that off if it's...
If you're cold, move forward or back. We need air on. It's still 78 in here, so.
Yes?
361. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Lord Jesus, I long to be perfectly whole. I want thee forever to live in my soul. Break down every idol, cast out every foe. Now wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Whiter than snow, yes, whiter than snow. Now wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Lord Jesus, come down from thy throne in the skies, and help me to bear a complete sacrifice. I give up myself and whatever I know. Now wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Whiter than snow, yes, whiter than snow. Now wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Lord Jesus, for this most complete truth, I wait blessed Lord, thy crucified feet. I thank for my cleansing, I see thy blood flow. Now wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Whiter than snow, yes, whiter than snow. Now wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Lord Jesus, thou sayest me patiently wait. Come now and within me a new heart create. To those who have sought thee, thou never sayest no. Now wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Whiter than snow, yes, whiter than snow. Now wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. It's one we don't do. Have we even done it here? Amen. And it's one of those I'm trying to, I don't exactly read music, but I can see the notes going up and down, and I can listen. But as I get worse as the verses go down, because the verses are further from the notes, and I'm looking at them.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Does anybody have a request? Sister Magali? Usually first. That's okay.
In the Sweet by and by, page 560.
560 what?
64.
4?
564.
564.
Yes.
There's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we'll see the fall. For the Father waits over the way to won't say when I first became a Christian because I was a TV Christian. But when I first went to church and people sing the hymns and things like this, I didn't get it. But now, Michael's mom is there, Julia's there, my sister's there, and I'm looking forward to the sweet by and by. Yes, yes, Mirabella. 562. You know it? Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh. You always sing this at funerals. Yeah. On the happy golden shore, where the faithful part no more, and the songs of life are all, may we there, where the night dissolves away into pure and perfect day. I am going there to stay. Meet me there. Meet me there. Where the Savior waits to greet us. Meet me there. Meet me there. Meet me there. Where the faithful part no more. Meet me there. Here the future is unknown. Here in pain our spirits glow. But one day I'm going home. Meet me there. Here we struggle in the race, trusting God's unfailing grace. But one day I'll see His face. Meet me there. Meet me there. Where the Savior waits to greet us. Meet me there. Meet me there. Where the faithful part no more. Meet me there. Where the songs of heaven ring and the blessed forever sing in the palace of the King. Meet me there. Where in sweet communion, heart with heart and friend with friend, in a world that ne'er shall end. Meet me there. Meet me there. Where the Savior waits to greet us. Meet me there. Meet me there. Meet me there. Where the faithful part no more. Meet me there. I've sung that at so many funerals.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Uncle Joel, I sing Uncle Joel's, Julia's.
You got one more? Brad, you got one more?
What do you got, brothers? 134. 134.
134. And carry I should gain an interest in the Savior. Did anyone have another one? Because we can sing it after. Did you have one, George?
4:30.
Oh, I like that.
Get ready for it.
Absolutely, you will.
Amen.
That's a good one. 3 minutes. They were at Pastor Lawson's church.
Good, Jared. Word. Hey, you better tell that girl, so you better do that. Well, we love George, you can do that.
I should be judging you. Makes me somebody else. He's listening to somebody else.
Where is he located?
Kentucky.
What?
Lawson? He lives in
Oh,
Kentucky?
Knoxville.
Oh, you went all the way to Knoxville?
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Wow. You guys travel, you should travel.
Well, we were resorting in Crossville, which is about 70 miles, 73 miles from Knoxville. And we drove over. You have Crossville, Cookville, Knoxville, Smallville, Louisville, all the buildings down there.
Williamsville? Williamsville went to all the other buildings.
Kidding. No, but they do have a place called, we stayed in Crossville. 30 miles down the road is Cookville, or Cookieville, is what they call it. And 70 miles east is Knoxville. It's a whole bunch of those. And many lives in Noblesville. It's a lot of those.
That's where though?
My sister
Talk
lives in
about-
Evansville.
Where is it? It's in Kentucky.
No, this is Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Tennessee,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I thought you said Manny.
Many lives in Noblesville, Indiana.
Oh, okay,
Well, this is still Ville.
You know,
Small city, 15,000. And by the way, Pastor, we did, on Independence Day, they had the parade, and we were at the gospel tract.
Amen.
The reception was just tremendous.
Amen.
Tremendous reception by the people. That gospel tract that Adam put together.
Yes. That is quite easy to give away to Americans, yes.
Amen.
All right, are we on here?
Sure.
Yes, we're on, good, good. Well, we're going to continue our studies in the book of Job. And last time we met, we saw Job beginning to answer the initial charges of Eliphaz. And Eliphaz had some error in his theology, thinking that very simplistic thinking of God. And of course, I'm not going to blame him too heavily. There was no Bible written at that time. What does strike me is there are many Eliphazes in the world today, and I don't know what their excuse is because we have a Bible. We now have 66 books of the Bible. Eliphaz didn't have any of the books, so I can understand his simplistic thinking of God, but erroneously thinking that God, everything directed, like God's pulling strings down here like a puppeteer, and if good things happen, then that's because you've been a good boy, and if bad things happen, you've been a bad boy, and God's chasing you. And he was incorrectly in his error condemning Job and saying the reason that all these things happen is you must have sin. You're living in sin. Nobody knows about it. And now you've been found out. And Job began answering in chapter 6, and he just answered, oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed, verse 1. And first he begins to give some of the rue and the grief that he's going on in his life, a rueful first part of the chapter. But then he closes up talking about verse 25, how forcible are right words. And then he reasons with them that we need the right words. And end of verse 29, cannot my taste discern perverse things? And he's saying, through the way I've lived, I've exercised my senses to the point of a discernment. And I can tell that the arguments you bring up against me are not correct. Although what's happening is that Jesus would say later on, judge not according to appearance, but make righteous judgment. And things may appear one way, but that isn't necessarily how they are. And we need a spiritual lens to see them. Now, this second chapter that Job's going to speak in response to Eliphaz, he's going to go on in the first part of the chapter. Chapter's only 21 verses, but we're in chapter 7. If you've been following along, in chapter 6, as I said, it was, and here in chapter 7, the second chapter of his response, the first half, verses 1 through 11, is kind of him just giving general complaints. I guess at the end of the 11th verse, he says, I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. And there's no doubt that what he's been through has been a bitter experience. And it's been a bitter experience for his soul, his emotions, his mind, his spirit to absorb. And again, remember, Job is being written. God gives it to us as the first book of the Bible. Because the reality is, as God looks down here, this is a cruel world. This is an evil world. Present, there's evil. There's an enemy attacking souls. There are people in their fallen nature bringing spots on other folks, just spilling messes on them. And the circumstances of life are hard. And of course, God did warn Adam, when you leave this garden now, it's going to be through the sweat of your brow. And Eve, you're going to have sorrowness in bearing children. They're going to bring sorrow into the world. You've allowed sin to enter into the world. And the repercussions of sin are dis-ease. And Job is written, God says, so that I want you to understand, in the midst of all this dis-ease, there still is hope. But I want you to understand, you're not the first to suffer. People have been suffering, and if you have suffered, I've given a book to you. And one of the reasons I gave you the book is to help you put up a little bit of shield of faith against the Eliphazes and the Bildads of life that are going to come in and give you bad advice. But you're going to complain in a bitter soul. Now, in addition to the complaints in this chapter, Job is going to ask a lot of questions. And the reality is, in life, we got questions. Now, when things are going well, the question is, what's the next restaurant we're going to? Where's the next entertainment we're going to enjoy and indulge in? Where's the next game? Where's the next movie? Okay, those are the questions. They're meaningless questions. But at the time of life, when trials come upon us, and if we don't quickly get over a trial, if it doesn't pass quickly, what will happen is we'll begin to ask questions. Why is this happening? How did this come about? What is the purpose of these things? And these are the questions that we begin to go through. And it probably is one of the reasons God allows trials. So we'll ask some of the bigger and deeper questions of life and not just skim through superficially and miss our appointment with truth in our life. The trials will help ask the right questions. And hopefully we'll be still long enough to find the answer. Job's going to ask questions. So you're going to see a man going through a lot, asking questions. And again, I've heard a lot of sermons, and the Eliphazes of our generation, believers in pulpits, point fingers at Job about where he fell short, as if they somehow think, if I was in that situation, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have asked that question. I read commentaries. Just castigating Job. He's criticizing God and the things, no, he's speaking in the bitterness of his soul. And one of the things God wants us to learn, please learn this, if not regarding yourself, but friends of yours, people say things when they're squeezed and they're under the pressures of life that they don't often mean. You can't take people literally at that time of life. You can take them seriously, because what they're going through is serious, but you can't take their words literally. That's the mistake that many people make, and they point fingers at Job. I'm not pointing any fingers. I haven't been through 1/10 of what Job's been through. And if I was faced with 1/10 of it, I'd probably be asking questions like his and more. And people could criticize me too, and I'd rather they criticize me than Job. Job's a good man. Matter of fact, God thinks he's an upright man. God thinks he's a perfect man. So, no apologies to the people in pulpits pointing fingers. We just want to look at some of the things Job says and realize maybe one day we'll be in that situation. We'll be asking the same things. Maybe we'll have a friend in that situation who will be asking the same things. Is there not an appointed time to a man upon the earth? Are not his days also like the days of an hireling as a servant, earnestly desiring the shadow, and as a hireling looking for the reward of his work? So am I, made to possess months of vanity, and wearisome nights are appointed to me. When I lie down, I say, when shall I arise and the night be gone? I'm full of tossing to and fro until the dawning of the day. And he's going through a rough time. I mean, he's got insomnia. He wants to sleep. I mean, the sleep is the one escape he has, and yet the problems are so heavy on him, he can't, that constantly turning over, he's thinking about him, and it just keeps him awake. Have you ever had insomnia? You ever been kept awake at night? Hopefully not. Hopefully none of you have been through it. But, and I mean, I understand in America, sometimes we get physical insomnia because we just feed ourselves so much garbage our body can't sleep. That's physical insomnia. This is insomnia due to emotional problems, due to stress that's going on, circumstances that are overwhelming an individual. Job didn't do anything to deserve this, as we read in the chapter 1. And even when the first set came upon him, he still got on his knees and praised God and sinned not with his tongue and with his mouth. And then more problems came in the second chapter. And it's been an overwhelming burden for one little person to bear. It's amazing he didn't break under it, but he's near the breaking point, and he's just confessing, I'm at the point now where I just want to, it's been months of vanity. The nights have been wearisome. Is there not an appointed time? Is this going to end? Is this question? Now this is a good question. Is there not an appointed time to men on the earth? Is there? Do we have an answer? Is there a place in the scriptures we can look to answer that question? Again, thankfully, here we are living thousands of years later, and God's given us full revelation. You got to go to the New Testament, to the book of Acts, chapter 17. Now, the reason I'm not giving you the answer to this, so that if you meet a Job going through a point in his life, you can say, well, Job, just turn to Acts 17, there's the answer. In the case of someone like that, just listen and pray. But in the case of someone who's not going through a Job situation, but is coming to the dawning of understanding there's got to be more to life than just this. Why am I here, and for how long am I going to be here? You can show them. Job asked the question, is there not an appointed time to a man on the earth? That's kind of the question you're asking right now when you're trying to help someone find truth in the scriptures and find Jesus, and you can show them the answer in Acts chapter 17. And here Paul is, verse 22, he's at Mars Hill. He's speaking to all the wise men in Athens. These are men, in verse 21, Athenians, who spend their time in nothing else but either to tell or hear some new thing. That is our generation. Flipping YouTube, flipping through the internet, just looking for some new thing, just looking for some new thing, always flipping around, looking for a new thing, superficially skating above the reality of life. And Paul says, verse 22, in all things you're too superstitious. And boy, do they find a lot of superstition out there. And he says, as I passed by, I beheld your devotions, and I found an altar with this inscription, to the unknown God. And I found you're all having a prayer meeting at your business session. And you're all praying to God. And you don't even know who He is. Okay? Verse 23, whom therefore ye ignorantly worship and pray to, Him I'll declare unto you. Let me tell you about the real God, and not this higher power you're praying at an AA or some American quote-unquote Christian business like Amway. Or there's a whole bunch of them out there. And superstitious people. Verse 24, God made the world and all the things that are therein, seeing He is Lord of heaven and earth. And He dwelleth not in temples made with hands, neither is He worshipped with men's hands, as though He needed anything, seeing He giveth all life and breath and all things. And He hath made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on all the face of the earth. I say, well, I don't know much about your God. That Jesus sounds like a Western, European type thing, and I've learned in school, don't trust the Western, white Anglo-Saxon, Protestant Christians. Wait a second. God made all nations on the face of the earth. God's not just interested in Europeans and Americans and English people. He's interested in all people. And not only that, He determined the times before appointed and the bounds of habitation. Is there a time appointed to you? Yes, God actually determined what nationality you would be and where you would be born. And you can show them in the Scriptures. It's not an accident that you're here. God planned when you would be born and where you would be born. There's a time appointed for you. And He set the bounds of your habitation. And He did this all that you should seek the Lord. Verse 27. At the end of verse 27, He's not far from every one of us. So yes, there's an appointed time to men. That's an appointment God made for you to live. And that was the first appointment He made for you. He also made a second appointment for you. You've got to go to Hebrews chapter 9 for that one.